So I'll thank everybody once again for coming. The Chaco Culture program tonight, hosted by Dave Myers from the Chaco Canyon site itself. Buried for hundreds of years under the windblown sands, the monumental complexes they constructed were occupied for several centuries and ultimately left behind whisper echoes from the past of a complex and sophisticated society continued by their descendants today. This present takes us into the lives of the Ancestral Pueblo people of the Northwest New Mexico. We'll look at the larger man-made structures in North America up until the mid 1800s, examine the mysteries of Chaco roads, and explore the solar and lunar alignments built into these monumental structures. Again, let me add people as they come in. Thank you. About the presenter, Dave Myers at the National Park Service is a park guide at Aztec Ruins National Monument. He's got a master's in museum studies and a BS in history, and has been living in the Four Corners area of the country since 1997. Lastly, I will ask people in the chat to chat to me directly, not the whole group, and to please put what your hometown library is. We had a few snafus on getting this up and running through Zoom, and it would be extremely helpful if you do it right away to send me what your hometown library is. That's all you have to do is Rockport, Gloucester, Manchester, etc. You don't need anything else. And once again, if you came in late, please send your questions through chat to me, and I will serve those up to Dave. Dave, I'm turning things over to you, and I thank everybody for joining us tonight. I think we're all in for a treat, so thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Dana, for those of you out there. Thank you so much for the introduction. Our talk tonight is going to be a slide presentation, and because this is not my presentation, it was one of our other rangers who put it together. The information is written down. So sadly, I'm going to sound intermittently like I'm reading, and it's because I am. So let's get started. Chaco Canyon and Aztec ruins are both located in Northwest New Mexico. I'm going to head this off right at the start. Many of you have probably heard of these people referred to as Anasazi or some variation thereof. Needless to say, the Puebloan people do not want to be called by a Navajo word, which is what Anasazi is. It means those who came before, ancient enemies, and it all just depends upon where you are on the Navajo Nation as to the more exact meaning of it. So I will be referring to these people as the Ancestral Pueblo, because that is what the modern Pueblo people have told us they want to be referred to as. So here we go. The center of the world for the Chacoan culture was definitely Chaco Canyon. Let's take a look here, and hello, wake up. There we go. Hey, just FYI, this is me and my daughter from a few years ago. It was the best photo I could find. She will be, when she graduates from high school, I'll be 70. That said, let's get on to Chaco Canyon and Mesa Verde, sorry, not Mesa Verde, and Aztec ruins. I am a ranger at Aztec ruins. I do go to Chaco Canyon and work there weekly, but I'm primarily stationed at Aztec. How are these two parks connected? Despite the name, and I'm going to throw this out there right away, Aztec ruins had nothing to do with the Aztecs of Mexico. So instantly throw that out of your repertoire. We just celebrated our 100th year here at Aztec ruins on January 24th. We were signed in by Warren G. Harding as Aztec ruins. The name Aztec is really a misnomer. the Spanish were traveling up through the area several hundred years ago, saw the walls poking up out of the dirt, and wrote down on their map, oh, the Aztec ruins, because that's who they knew. They knew the Aztecs. But of course, it's not. These are the Ancestral Pueblo people. Chaco Canyon, just to give you a little background here, Chaco Canyon is kind of like, I shouldn't say kind of like, was really the center of Chacoan culture from about 850 to about 1200, give or take. These are rough estimates. Chaco culture and Aztec ruins preserve elements of a multifaceted and sophisticated culture that has been in existence for centuries. The Ancestral Pueblo people developed the Chacoan culture and built great houses 1,000 or more years ago, and the Pueblo people of today are their descendants. To give you an idea, there are 20 different Pueblo tribes in New Mexico, Arizona, and I think there's one just across the border in Texas. What we're looking at here are two ruins. The top one is called Wajiji, and it's Wijiji is how that's pronounced, or how it's spelled. And the bottom is a look at Aztec ruins. Again, these are about maybe 70 miles apart. One Aztec ruins is along the Animas River, and Chaco Canyon is in, you got it, Chaco Canyon. This is a complex story with many lingering unanswered questions. So in the next 45 minutes or so, I'm hoping to give you just a little glimpse into these fascinating places, the lives of the people who created them, how they're connected, and what made this the center of the world. The ruin you are seeing is called New Alto, and again, it is at Chaco Canyon. This map here gives you a little idea of this corner of New Mexico. We've got a little bit about Chaco Canyon here, and then directly north is Aztec ruins. We will get into some of this here in the short near future. The Chaco culture is really a network of archaeological sites in northwestern Mexico, including Chaco Canyon, Aztec ruins, and as you can see, lots and lots of other outliers. And again, this area was home to the Ancestral Puebloan from about 850 to about 1300. Here is a little look at Chaco Canyon. And we're going to do a lot about Chaco Canyon because Chaco is so important to the story. Between 900 and 1150 CE, Chaco Canyon was a major center of culture for the Ancestral Pueblo people. They built numerous complexes in the canyon and above on the mesa tops. You can see the canyon area here and the mesa tops up here, Pueblo Alto, Cincletzen here, and so on. Materials for construction of these buildings really came from very nearby. If you have or ever get the chance to get out to Chaco Canyon, you will see exactly where they got their building material. In fact, some of it can be seen right up here. They definitely took their materials from the local sandstone. In addition to the stonework, they also had to harvest and haul timber from 30 to 50 miles away. The photos you're looking at here, both of these are from Aztec ruins. They've showed this one section, this one room here, They've had to support with a big beam, as well as these things called screw jacks. And you get an idea about how the roof in these various buildings are constructed. With these materials, they constructed massive monumental structures, creating numerous major complexes that remained the largest buildings ever constructed in North America until the mid 1800s. The layout of each of these great houses was well planned, and construction spanned over decades or even centuries. This is just showing you the kind of classic D-shaped, as they say, for these Puebloan ruins. Rooms back here, these round circles are called kivas. We're going to see and talk about more kivas here shortly. Pueblo Bonito in the upper right is the largest known great house. These other three are all at Chaco Canyon. One of the things that really stands out about the Chacoan architecture, if you will, or at least buildings, is their massive scale. And I know it's so difficult to tell, how big are we looking at here? How big is this? And this is probably, and I can't give you an exact number, I don't have that number, but what you're seeing is, this is called Peñasco Blanco, and it is one of the oldest great houses, as they call them, at Chaco Canyon, and was probably built in around 900 AD. These are several more great houses. Again, all of these are at Chaco Canyon. Just to give you an idea on their scale and how big these things are. We'll get more into the details. The one on the left is Quincletzin, Pueblo del Arroyo on the upper right, and finally, the wonderfully named Wijiji in the lower right. Keep in mind that these layouts, these buildings were very formal, symmetrical, and most of these great houses had hundreds of rooms and were often 3 and maybe even 4 stories in height. So when we say massive and monumental, it really and truly is the case. Here again is a little example of some of the walls. These walls were, although it doesn't look like it, these are called core and veneer, and how that works and how the Ancestral Pueblo people built these are basically 2 thinner walls built next to each other and then filled with sand and rocks in the middle, giving them a much bigger, heavier look. And of course, this was needed if you were going to be building multiple stories. And the Ancestral Pueblo people were incredible masons. Great houses generally face south and have a central plaza with an arc or a line of rooms enclosing them. They give them their characteristic D or bracket shape. They also often have midden piles, and a midden pile is kind of like your garbage pile, if you're unfamiliar with the term midden, incorporated into the earthworks around them. Though oftentimes, but of course, archaeologically, these are extremely difficult to see in modern times. Keep in mind, these buildings sat mostly empty for 1,000 years. So you had 1,000 years of California and Arizona dust blowing in to New Mexico and covering these buildings up. Here we're looking at Pueblo Bonito on the right and Chetro Kettle on, I'm sorry, Pueblo Bonito on the left, Chetro Kettle on the right. And let's go and see what we have next. Great these great houses have these round semi-subterranean rooms called kivas, K-I-V-A, and these were the ceremonial spaces that the Ancestral Pueblo and modern Pueblo people use today. They're round, and there's some evidence that even if they had to adopt a square room to become a kiva, then they did it. They would stone in structure the walls so that when they went in, it was round. So even if you had corners, they rounded them to make them a kiva if they needed ceremonial space. So this is the great house. This is both the great house behind us and the great kiva at Aztec ruins. What makes the great kiva at Aztec ruins different is that it's the only reconstructed great kiva. It was reconstructed in the 1930s, and the Park Service has maintained it since then. Here's the inside. If you're wondering what a great kiva looks like on the inside, this is probably a pretty darn good representation. Again, reconstructed, so there are things that are no doubt left out. But if you make it to Aztec ruins, this is one of the things that you can enter and see. Let's see. Let's move on. There are other features in these great houses which are unusual. One of them are these T-shaped doorways. We see this T-shaped motif in all over Chaco and Ancestral Pueblo and Chacoan culture, and it clearly has some significance. Here at Aztec ruins, you will only find these T-shaped doorways on the doorways facing into the plaza. You wouldn't find them in any interior rooms. So there you have it. And both of these photos here are both from Chaco Canyon. One of the other things that you're going to notice also are these corner doorways. My understanding, I am not a mason, but I have been told that corner doorways are structurally not as sound and can be difficult to build structurally. The Ancestral Pueblo people obviously figured that out. Here's a picture of Aztec ruins. This is actually Aztec West. You can really see all the typical great house features, the monumental scale, the formal layout, the symmetry, hundreds of rooms. There were about over 450 rooms in this structure when it was originally built. It was 3 stories high in the back along this back wall, but stair-stepped down back down to 1 story on in many places. One of the things I want to point out is that there are also standalone great kivas, like this one here at Chaco Canyon. This is the largest kiva that we know of. It's called Casa Rinconada. And just seeing this picture really gives you a little taste for what it's like here in Northwest New Mexico, in particular, Chaco Canyon. I should perhaps also add something that may help. Generally speaking, we up here in the Four Corners get about 10 inches of precipitation annually. That includes snow and rain. One of the other things that is a little bit more difficult to see is there were lots of what we refer to as single unit pueblos. Basically, these are housing structures. You can see on this photo here that this wall here is very thin in comparison to some of the previous walls we've looked at. That's because this is where people would live, in these buildings. Generally speaking, and I'm probably getting ahead of myself in the slideshow on this, but I'm going to add that, for example, here at Aztec Ruins, even though there were 400 and some rooms, and I could go on and on and on, the archaeologists say that perhaps only 150, maybe as many as 200 people lived here. With that in mind, much of these large buildings are suspected to be really more ceremonial than necessarily apartment living, like we might look at them. Some other unusual things. This is something some of you may be familiar with. This is called the sun dagger and the sun dagger petroglyph. It sits atop a high butte, a few hundred feet off the ground. If I get a picture, if one of the pictures shows it, I'll be happy to talk about the Fajada Butte. But one of the things that was discovered in the late 70s were these three stones. Again, as you can see from the photos, you're hundreds of feet above the ground. These three stones create an alignment, and it's actually really and truly, it's a timepiece. And it's a timepiece because it is a solar and definitely a lunar marker. If you look at the photo on your right, you're seeing this dagger of light going right through the center of this spiral petroglyph on the back side. And how the shadows lay across this will tell you whether it's the summer solstice, the winter equinox, winter solstice, sorry, the fall equinox or the spring equinox, sorry about that. So this is very much an eye-opening find for archaeologists, and they have been working to try and, in a way, decode it. And this is what we know, is that it marks the equinoxes, it marks the solstices, and oddly enough, it also marks the 18.5-year lunar standstill. Please don't ask me to explain the lunar standstill, because I still haven't got a grip on it myself. There are several great YouTube videos out there that do a much better job of explaining the lunar standstill, if you wish to know more. Many of the Chacoan buildings were aligned to the cardinal directions and to the lunar and solar cycles. What you're seeing here is the summer solstice sunrise in a line with the east-west running wall at the Aztec Ruins Great House. So that is the sunrise on summer solstice. And we often have people come out for that. And we do that at Chaco as well. Observation points also use natural landscape features as alignments for lunar and solstice and solar events. Lunar standstill at Chimney Rock, Colorado. It's in southwestern Colorado. All of these alignments require generations of astronomical observations and centuries of skillful coordination in construction of the buildings. Observance of astronomical alignments was important for planting, harvesting, hunting cycles, as well as keeping an accurate ceremonial calendar. By the way, there is a national forest monument here at Chimney Rock. If you make it up to this area, you can definitely visit Chimney Rock, as well as Aztec Ruins and Chaco Canyon. So here we are. Once again, we are in Chaco Canyon. This is a complex and sophisticated culture as evidenced by their ability to construct these massive great houses. Looking at Chaco Canyon, it seems an unlikely place for a thriving society. Various investigations, such as tree ring dating, pollen, and hydrological studies have shown that the climate in Chaco Canyon and at Aztec ruins, and generally the whole Four Corners, has really not changed in the past 1,000 years. It's arid and not a lot of water. Why did the ancestral people choose this location as the center of the world? And here, once again, we're looking at Chaco Canyon. Why did they build these such monumental buildings? Why make them this big? What were these great houses used for? How many people lived here? How did people survive here? What an excellent question. And how were they able to expand their world over such an extensive area? This is and was a harsh environment. So there must have been other reasons for choosing Chaco Canyon to be the center of their culture. The Ancestral Pueblo people considered this to be the center place, so religious and spiritual beliefs seem to have played an important part in choosing this location. Oh, and what we're looking at here, this is Casa Rinconada. Again, this is the largest kiva that we know of, and there are, without question, solar and lunar alignments. If you happen to come out on summer solstice at about 5:30 in the morning, you can get into the park and see the sun rise and see the alignments for yourself on solstice morning. Each researcher or archaeologist has a differing opinion on how many people lived here in the canyon, and depending upon who you ask, how many people lived here as well. Regardless of how many people lived here, how did they survive here? Needless to say, as water was quite sparse, you can imagine that water was an extremely important commodity, especially to the Ancestral Pueblo. There was limited water, and they took full advantage by creating check dams and other things that we're going to get into here shortly. We know from historical records that photographs that the arroyo in the center of the canyon, and I'm going to point this out here in this photo here. This is what they're talking about. This is this one in the distance. And this is what the canyon looks like today on the left. So let's see. Let me continue where I was reading. We know from historical records and photographs that the arroyo in the center of the canyon was not cut into the canyon floor as deep as it is today. That goes without saying, even as recently as 100 years ago. Therefore, the ephemeral stream flowed more on the ground surface, not deep into the channel. This allowed people to take advantage of the Chaco River plain wash during seasonal rainfall. And let me tell you that the seasonal rainfall is significant. And we're going to get to that shortly. At least we're supposed to. Here we go. So here you go. This is the Chaco wash, and it is 11 days apart. However, there is an issue of environmental unpredictability. Good monsoon rains. So here in the Four Corners, we use the term monsoon to denote summer rains, which is the time when we get the most precipitation. Usually July and August account for 60 to 75% of the precipitation that falls here in the Four Corners. So when you hear the term monsoon, know that it's being used slightly differently from true monsoons, which I believe are Southeast Asia. But also, so as you can see, these are two very different photos taken not that far apart, and you can see the massive swell. Those monsoons, when they can come as extremely fierce thunderstorms, and they can drop inches of rain in just an hour or so. There seems to be some evidence that the Chacoans built a system of check dams and canals to divert any available water running from the mesa tops down the rincons on into the main canyon. Again, we're looking at, this is, I'm going to use a couple archaeological terms. This is Basket Maker 3 Canal. Just know that this was, that Basket Maker 3 predated the Puebloans, the Ancestral Puebloans becoming what we see as today as Ancestral Pueblos. If that makes any sense. It probably doesn't, but I'll continue on here. Let's go. These are, you'll see on this map to the left that these are the hypothesized canals that they believe are there. There is weak evidence for this, but there still seems to be evidence that there were canals here. With these scarce water resources, they practiced limited dry farming to grow corn, beans, squash, amaranth, tomatillos, sunflowers, and squash. They also raised domesticated turkeys and dogs, but keep in mind that they had no large beasts of burden, unless you include the Ancestral Pueblo people themselves, which is what they did. Their diet was supplemented by hunting and gathering of wild foods. It seems very likely that large amounts of food staples were brought into the canyon as trade items or offerings, or to be consumed by those coming into the canyon for annual events. Of course, they did have other needs for the uses of this water, drinking, cooking, etc. But water was, without question, a rare commodity. Still is. Here again is a map. Chaco and later Aztec were part of an extensive trade network. Here we're seeing some of the trade lines going again to the sea and down into Mexico, where they definitely traded for things like copper. Again, here are some major North American trade routes, all pre-Columbian in nature. These excavations at Chaco and elsewhere have found chert and obsidian for tool making. And again, these are not overly natural items for this area of the country. As rocky as we are, most of what we see is sandstone. Many different forms and styles of pottery were found in both Aztec and Chaco. Some produced on site, and some were imported from other places. I'm going to draw your attention to this pottery piece in the lower left-hand corner. And I only mention this because of its uniqueness. You can see that it's pitch black, and this is a technique, I'm told by our local archaeologist who happens to specialize in pottery. She said that this was a technique used hundreds of years before, but somebody, and wasn't seen again until Aztec ruins. And when some potter revitalized this black, this completely black pottery. And I should tell you, if you're going to ask a question, well, how did they get the black? I'm going to just tell you, they got it from soot. So there you have it. Here are some other trade items. We talked a little bit about copper bells. I mentioned that. You also see cacao here in the lower right-hand corner. There was evidence that chocolate, cacao, made its way up to the Four Corners, obviously, and it's not an indigenous plant to this area, so it was obviously traded for. We can also see that there are these macaws. And keep in mind that these were a sacred bird to the Ancestral Pueblo. And think about it. I mean, here it is. You've got these incredibly vivid and brilliant colors. And plus, the bird will talk. So as you might imagine, all of these things were important trade items. Again, more trade items here. Some of the items produced, some of the things that the Ancestral Pueblo people produced were cotton cloth, turkey feather blankets. I can talk about those a little bit later, and elaborately woven sandals. All of these things on the far left are sandals. So there you go, and turquoise beads as well. Let's move on. The great houses seem to have been the center of trade, religion, administration, education, and politics, rather than huge apartment buildings. Though it's thought that some people did live in them year-round, evidence points to large periodic influxes of people, probably coming into Chaco and later into Aztec for annual ceremonies and trade. Certainly, these buildings were much, much larger than was essential or even practical. They're absolutely monumental in scale. In our own modern and historic cultures, there are numerous reasons why people construct monuments or monumental buildings: as a show of wealth or power, to inspire awe, to denote importance or grandeur, to convey a sense of permanence. And these could have been the same reasons the Chacoans had 1,000 years ago. Again, I should perhaps also say that if you don't know, the Ancestral Pueblo people that lived here and built here had no written language, and they didn't encounter anybody that had written language while they were between 850 and 1300. So keep that in mind as we're doing all this. And it's also partly why there's so much unknown about these people and these places. This is a look at Aztec ruins. So we have moved out of Chaco and now are on to Aztec ruins, at least for a few photos. And one of the things that Aztec ruins was an outlier of Chaco, for what it's worth. I want you to look carefully at this photo. What you're seeing here is Aztec ruins on the left. This is called Aztec West. There's the Great Kiva in the center of Aztec West. If you look immediately to your right, you're going to see a few mounds here, and you can even over on the far side see some walls poking out. This is Aztec East. It's mostly unexcavated. I think the archaeologists have said there are probably about 350 rooms here, but it was not as well constructed as Aztec West. So with that in mind, when excavation began in 1916, they excavated Aztec West first, and Aztec East will probably never be excavated. And I can explain why later on in this. If I forget to answer that question, please feel free to post it in the questions. Again, here we are at Aztec, a little aerial view. Again, Aztec had some real advantages over Chaco. One of them being a much more more, I'm using this term loosely, more permanent river. This is the Animas River, flows out of the San Juan Mountains in Colorado. And once again, you can see Aztec West and Aztec East on the right. Keep in mind, there was also ruins up on this North Mesa. I know it's difficult to tell. This line here cutting through to the upper right, or toward the upper right, that is a ditch, or a ditch for water. And you can see that if you continue north of that, where it says Aztec North, up there, and it's it's several hundred feet above Aztec West and East, was an even earlier ruin that we call, you got it, Aztec North, inventively called, right? But Aztec North predates Aztec West and Aztec East by about 50, I think they say 50 or 60 years. Oh, here we are back at Chaco. Sorry for moving you around a little bit, but this kind of gives you a feel. This is a photo taken probably at sunset. And so you're able to really see the contrast of the cliffs and the canyon, and of course Pueblo Benito below us. So we are looking at here, I think I explained this a little bit earlier, but let's look at it a little bit more closely. Here we are back at Aztec ruins once more. Here is Aztec North, Aztec West and East, just to give you a little feel. This is the ditch that runs behind Aztec. I'm going to read this part. Just as at Chaco, the people here built and used irrigation canals to water their crops. Today, the farmer's ditch, that's literally the name of the water canal you're looking at, it's called the farmer's ditch, runs through the park and continues to irrigate crops. According to early settlers, which would have been the 1870s, irrigation canals were present near the ruins prior to its eradication by modern farming. So in other words, the settlers here noticed that not far from, just a little north of Aztec ruins, was the remains of what looked like a canal. And they were actually able to trace the canal back 2 miles to the river, the Animas River. So it seems that our ancestral Pueblo people not only were very great builders of buildings, but they were also good at ditches and canals. Again, here we are, a gloomy photo on a wintry day here in Aztec ruins. Again, the Great Kiva. And once again, the interior of the Great Kiva here at Aztec ruins. This photo here that I'm showing you is what the Great Kiva at Aztec ruins looked like just before they reconstructed it in 1934. And I'm going to point out a couple things here. You notice that there are these two rectangular, we call them floor vaults. Here in the center, these were, you will always find these vaults in great kivas, in the very large kivas. The center structure here is a fire pit, and I could continue to go on about what else you're looking at, but we have other slides to look at. Let's keep going. This is known as a tri-wall kiva. If you look closely, you'll see that there are actually 3 layers of wall, here, here, and here. Now the question is, what were these tri-walls used for? And we have no idea. We have no idea why these triple-walled kivas were built. Was this protection? Was it storage? Was it housing? We simply don't know. why these tri-wall kivas. Keep in mind that I think there are only, and don't quote me on this, but it's a stat pretty close to this. I think there are only 6 known tri-wall kivas anywhere in the Four Corners. Aztec Ruins has 4 of them. So it must have been a thing in the 12 and 1300s for the Ancestral Pueblo people to build these tri-wall kivas. Again, we're here at Aztec Ruins, and we're looking at the interior of a T-shaped door. I shouldn't say the interior. We're looking at the remains of a T-shaped door. T-shaped doors, again, we see a T-shaped motif on some Ancestral Pueblo pottery. And practically, of course, the T-shaped is wonderful. If you have your hands full of something and you're walking in from somewhere, having it be wider at the top sure makes a lot of sense. Is that why they built them? We doubt it, but we also think that it had a pretty good practical use as well. So we've talked a little bit about Chaco, and we've talked a little bit about Aztec. We are going to venture into these things called Chaco roads. These roads were just that. They're roads. But I think you're going to find that they were used very differently than the roads we use and what we use our roads for. Here is a little look at the Chaco road system. Here's Chaco Canyon. You can see it, and all of these dotted lines are Chaco roads. Again, you can see that these roads do not really curve. They go straight. And we're going to talk about that here shortly, and why the Chaco roads are different than how we might perceive a road. We jump on the road to ride our bike or drive our car. Their roads appear to be used vastly differently, but the amount of effort that went into building these roads is substantial. So many of the Chaco roads are very short, but some stretch for dozens of miles. The longest being what the archaeologists refer to as the Great North Road. You can very much see this on this map to the left. This road starts at Pueblo Alto and runs due north to Cuts Canyon near Bloomfield, about 31 miles away. There are road segments found within Aztec ruins and continue beyond the park boundaries. So there are really the roads are kind of still one of the great mysteries of the Chaco, of the Ancestral Puebloan people. Obviously, here are roads that we're going to be familiar with. Highways and roads here, and ceremonial roads and scenic roads and remote locations. Let's see what else. Here we are at Pueblo Alto. Today, these roads are generally not visible on the ground. To give you an example, there's a section of Chaco Road that runs between Aztec East and Aztec West. And several years ago, an archaeologist was taking myself and several other people out to talk about some of the Aztec ruins, and showing us some areas that are off limits to the public. Well, there's a section of road. And I asked him, I said, hey, where is the Chaco Road? And he says, well, first of all, you're standing on it. And then he said, oh, do you see that little sagebrush over there? Do you see that little bump next to it? That's the edge of the road. So these things are extremely difficult to spot in most cases. So what you're looking at this photo, Pueblo Alto is here, and you can see this is a modern road here. You can see a modern road coming and passing The roads that we're looking at are these vague lines going here, 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 and here, just to give you an idea. And we're going to get some clarification on that here in another few photos. Again, here is a low in the sky sunlight shot. Again, you can see these roads continuing northward from Pueblo Alto. Again, here and here and here. The great thing is that the invention of LIDAR, which is basically, it stands for something that they use laser for. Again, I'm not an archaeologist, I'm a historian, so I don't have all of these. If you ask those questions, I won't be able to answer them. But again, LIDAR, my understanding is that how it works is it produces an extremely accurate look at the landscape, and is able to do that and eliminate from its view, so to speak, much of the vegetation. Here are these, the photo on the right shows where a lot of these Chaco roads are. This next photo is an actual photo of an actual Chaco road before it was obliterated. This is known as Airport Mesa Road. This photo was taken in 1916, and you can see the monumental scale and the white surface treatment of this road. It was clearly visible. There is absolutely nothing left. This is about a mile away from Aztec ruins. And there is not, you literally cannot see anything. There seems to be no evidence that there was ever a road there, but we know full well that there was. So this is how quickly our modern culture has run over these things, sadly. Sometimes on purpose, most of the time unknowing. Roads were constructed primarily by excavating a roadbed, maybe 3 or 4 inches deep, not much, and clearing the rock and vegetation, and occasionally surfacing the road with caliche, adobe, cobbles, and or flagstone. Road edges were often defined by short, very low stone curbs. And again, what we're looking at here is we are looking at part of the Chaco Road, or the remains of it. Again, more Chaco roads. If you hadn't noticed, you can see that almost all of these, none of these have curves. These are right angles only. You can see a few roads to the north up here that make a little jog, but for the most part, they are straight as straight can be. This is great. So when a Chaco road came upon something like, oh, I don't know, maybe like a cliff face, instead of going around the cliff or whatever happened to be in your way, the road just continued straight up the cliff face by building stairs. And here we're seeing, these are both from Chaco Canyon. This is Jackson Stairway on the left, and a stairway on the right behind the ruin of a ruin called Hungo Pavi. Many road segments associated with outlying great houses don't seem to run continuously to Chaco Canyon or anywhere else. Instead, they start at a great house and run a short distance from it, often in the direction of a notable landscape feature or other great house, or perhaps even other great kivas. These roads at Quinajoni near Grants, New Mexico, this is what we're looking at here, run in the direction of seem to point toward prominent landforms. Clockwise, you're looking at Mount Taylor, Bandera Peak, Zuni Mountains, and an unnamed butte over here. Other road segments connect or run toward places that were occupied in the past, connecting sites of different eras, perhaps creating a symbolic union with the people's ancestors. Cultural history told, remembered, and remembered through roads. There are several common features associated with Chacoan roads that can be helpful in identifying them. One is elongated linear ceramic scatters. In other words, for whatever reason, along many of these roads, you can find broken pots. They have, for whatever reason, these pots, or maybe just the sherds, were super common along these roads. Again, we don't know why. Probably some sort of ritualistic thing, but again, we don't know why or how. What we're looking at here, you can see these sherd scatters here in the photo B, immediately to the right. We are looking at a small crescent-shaped masonry structure with ceramic deposits known as herraduras or shrines, like the one facing Mount Taylor. On the left over here, you can see Mount Taylor. C over here, small crescent-shaped masonry structures with ceramic deposits. Oh, we got that. Sorry, stone circles like the one on North Mesa. Pueblo del Arroyo, again, we're here at Chaco Canyon, is visible near the wash. An ancient and an ancient South Gap road. This is South Gap in photo C. Is visible near the wash, and here finally you can see that they've put in a line here. These are road gates. White lines run across the width of the road along single course masonry with an opening. This may be to regulate the flow of traffic, we're using this loosely as you'll hear, along the road, or some other formalized or ritualistic function. Vegetation patterns indicate road. Roads lead to great houses. Okay. However, there has been little evidence of camping, residential structures, or even settlements along the roads. The Ancestral Pueblo people did not use wheeled vehicles on these roads. They did not have the wheel. They didn't even have horses or oxen or some other beasts of burden. Their only domesticated animals were dogs and turkeys. More views of some Chaco roads. Why did the Chacoan people construct these wide roads that didn't often connect to things? The purpose of these roads still perplexes archaeologists today. Some researchers believe that the roads had a mainly functional purpose to move goods and people or to transport construction timbers. Some propose that the non-continuous segments were originally connected by other road segments, which have since eroded away to form continuous roads from Chaco Canyon to outlying communities in other parts of San Juan Basin. Others argue that these segments do not connect to form roads, but were more symbolic in practice. So what I'm going to tell you is that there is an archaeologist doing his PhD work, and this is, I'm ad-libbing this because this won't be found in this, so I'm going to give you some more recent information, certainly information within the past year. This particular PhD student found that when he examined the soil beneath the road, beneath the Chaco roads, he found the same compaction that you find under modern highways. Okay, so obviously they didn't have wheeled vehicles. So his conclusion is that these roads weren't used by like a family. These roads were used by hundreds of people at one time, maybe thousands of people. So that very much changes how we look at these Chaco roads. A ceremony involving hundreds or even thousands of people going up or down these roads may have been part of some ancestral Puebloan ceremony. Let's read a little bit here. The enormous amount of labor invested in the construction of these roads suggests scale. The construction of these is way beyond what's practical. And so it suggests a different purpose rather than transportation. These things indicate that many road segments were intended to be symbolic, connections to places of importance, rather than everyday means of transportation. In many places, road segments led in the directions of important landscape features such as lakes, caves, springs, pinnacles, buttes, and mountain peaks. The photo on the left is of a road at Pueblo Pintado and is oriented to the winter solstice sunrise. And here it is, we're looking at it at the winter solstice sunrise. Let's see. The center photo, the sun sets over Chaco Canyon where the roads ultimately lead. And let's see, and we have, let me point out this photo on the far right. You're going to see some dots here. These dots indicate, well, you can barely see the roads on the left-hand side, but these dots are of sherd scatters. And again, we don't know what the significance of this is. The best way to understand Chacoan roads, of course, is in the light of the culture that built them. They left no written record of their lives 1,000 years ago. However, the Pueblo people of today are their descendants and can provide insight into the significance of these roads. Regarding the North Road, North holds great importance in Pueblo cosmologies as the place of emergence and the return of the spirits of the dead. In the Tewa culture and language, road translates to channel for the life's breath. And the image of two parallel roads conveys the relationship between the living and the dead. The North Road is more than a guide or corridor linking Chacoan great houses and features. It is a map to a lifeway. It holds the stories of the Chaco civilization. Numerous roads emanating from Pueblo Alto Great House. And that's what we're looking at here in this photo, Pueblo Alto and the roads extending out. I am not going to read this to you. If you are literate, please read it on your own. And I'll give you a couple minutes to do that. Okay, so when you see the term Dene, Dene really means Navajo. That is what the Navajo people refer to themselves as, Dene. So FYI. So here it is. We are nearing the end of our presentation. However we understand Chacoan roads or great houses, there's no denying that the Ancestral Pueblo people built on a monumental scale, both within Chaco Canyon and in outlying communities throughout the San Juan Basin. The buildings and the roads they constructed and the culture they created stand as a testament to the culture that's thrived here for centuries here in the high desert of New Mexico. Numerous factors led to the okay. So now, sorry, we're talking about oftentimes back in the 70s and even into the 80s, the mystery of the Anasazi people, what happened to them, et cetera, because what happened in the 1300s is the Ancestral Pueblo people that lived here in the Four Corners moved all over a relatively short period of time. And I can't quote you on that time, but people seem to be moving out of the area right around 1300. And where they were moving to was south to more reliable water and other pueblos. There had been numerous severe droughts in this area, and you can completely understand how a drought in this area could be devastating. Without water, you can't grow your crops, you can't feed your people. And if you can't do that, it's time to move. So around 1300, give or take, these areas were all what we say as abandoned. To the Pueblo people, they don't see them as abandoned. These are just the homes of their ancestors. And when Pueblo people come here, they often will ask the ancestors permission to explore their place, their ancient homeland. But and I'm gonna read a little bit here. But the ancestral people didn't disappear, and these places weren't abandoned. The oral traditions of the 20 Pueblo tribes in New Mexico, 18 are in New Mexico. 1 is in Arizona, that's the Hopi, and 1 is just over the border into Texas, and I don't have their name, I'm sorry. But we know we can talk, and we regularly do talk to our tribal partners. But the Pueblo people are fairly tight-lipped about their ceremonies. And this is something that has really come about in the past few hundred years. As you might suspect, they were, and the Pueblo people were attacked, and much like other indigenous people, and forced onto reservations. You should know that, and this is a weird tidbit of information that I heard from a Pueblo elder who from a place called Acoma, that Acoma was one of the few tribes that would not sign a treaty with the United States government. Pretty smart people, if you ask me. Chaco and Aztec continue to be an important and numinous place for the Pueblo people and the Dene, a place for their ancestors, a place that they still visit today. They are places of importance enough that both of these places are designated as World Heritage Sites. Here we are looking at dancers in Aztec, in the plaza at Aztec ruins. These are, I believe, Zuni dancers, but don't quote me on that. And I want to really and truly thank you so much for taking time out of your evening to listen to me talk a little bit about Chaco Canyon and Aztec ruins in Northwest New Mexico. I think if you're ready, we can take a few questions.
I've got some questions all primed for you, Dave. So thank you for this tremendous program. Just visually, it was absolutely beautiful. And to hear you narrating the slides and what was in them really was extremely interesting.
Yay.
We've got someone here that writes that they were at the parks before 2000. Are there a lot of visitors now There seemed to have been hardly anyone at Chaco Canyon back then.
An excellent question and a great observation. And the answer to your question is no. Our visitation has, for the most part, remained fairly stable. Here at Aztec Ruins, we get about 60,000 visitors a year. We are located within the city of Aztec, New Mexico. Chaco Canyon is exceedingly remote. And so even though it is a much bigger park and much more well-known than Aztec Ruins, they get about the same visitation, about 60,000 people a year. And I want to compare this, I want to contrast this with Mesa Verde National Monument, which is just a little north of us here at Aztec Ruins in Southwest Colorado. They get well over 1 million visitors. Why the difference between Chaco Canyon and Mesa Verde? One word, or two words, the road. The road going into Chaco Canyon is managed by two governments. The Navajo Nation owns half of the road and the other half is owned by San Juan County. It often goes neglected. So getting down to Chaco can be arduous at best. Flat tires, stranded vehicles are a common sight, sadly. Now, that said, right now, and I mean literally right now, the road is in the best shape it has been in years. So if you make your way, here in the Four Corners, probably within the next month or so, you should have a relatively smooth drive down to Chaco. You also have the park to yourself. Daily visitation in January can be as low as 2 or 3 people. I was working at Chaco last week and they had a total of 12 people all day. So if you want to come to Chaco Canyon or Aztec Ruins and really have a true experience without having to rub elbows with some of your other visitors, come in January.
Thank you for that, Dave. I've got another question. I've always found it interesting that Pueblo people speak multiple languages from unrelated language families. Is there any common agreement on what language families would have been spoken in the Chaco Canyon area during the time of peak population? And what's the cultural significance?
Let's just answer this by saying, I don't know. Be plain up and simple. I honestly don't have enough knowledge about the languages. I know there are 4 separate languages that the Pueblo people speak, but I don't know why linguistically some of them are different. What was spoken here originally? Did their language change? Obviously, it did change over the years, obviously. But into what way and what degrees, I simply don't know. An excellent question that I don't know the answer to.
Another question. Early in the presentation, you showed a section of wood roof that was supported with screw jacks. Is that original? If so, approximately how much of the original wood components of the structures have survived to modern times?
So the good thing about here in Northwest New Mexico, as you already know, is exceedingly dry. To give you an idea on how dry it is, we are drier here than they are down in Phoenix and Tucson. They get several inches more precipitation annually than we do. So that said, this dryness has preserved a lot of the wood. And because of that, they were able to do a lot of tree ring dating, otherwise known as dendrochronology. And so much of the wood has survived. And let me see if I've got a, oh, I can't see it right now, but the photo you're talking about was taken in Aztec Ruins. And that area that you were looking at was directly beneath, was one of the back rooms, and partly why they think those timbers were so well preserved is that after the Ancestral Pueblo people left, at some point that 3-story wall above those timbers collapsed. Now, under normal circumstances, that collapse may have also caved in those roofs. But because those timbers are so incredibly large and heavy duty, the fallen 3-story wall actually ended up protecting those timbers. So the moisture that reached them was minimal at best. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Would it be possible to show the slide with the trade routes again?
Sure. Let's back up here a little bit.
So if you go back up to, okay.
Trade routes, trade. Working on trade. Give me a minute here.
Take your time.
Oh, is it there? Nope. It was, I think, maybe Binbon. Did I go past it already?
I think it was further back.
Okay, let's keep going. Yes, I think you're right. There we go. There are some of your North American trade routes.
And what's the evidence for those trade routes? Would it be the projectile points and where they originated, or how does one ascertain that those were the trade routes?
Good question. A question that would be awesome for an archaeologist. I honestly don't know. Again, I suspect there's some physical evidence. There is obviously trade items that didn't come, well, as we know, there were obviously things that didn't come from Northwest New Mexico or Southwest Colorado. But how they determined how those lines are, I have no idea.
Interesting.
Again, a great archaeological question that I do not have a solid answer for.
No problem. No problem. Interested in why the Aztec East will probably not be excavated?
An excellent question. The answer to that is that they have some ground penetrating radar, so they have a moderately reasonable take on what's already down there. And what's down there doesn't change our story. Mind you, there were earlier plans from 30, 40, 50 years ago to excavate East Ruin and to have it open to the public. But since then, and since archaeology has very much evolved, excavating that will probably not happen again because it truly doesn't change our story. But I will tell you something different. Just again, a tidbit of information about a little bit of the differences between East and West Ruin. For example, at West Ruin, they found no fish bones. At Aztec East, they found lots of fish bones. Again, we have no idea why, but again, it's these sorts of things that keep people interested. Like, why? Why was this done? Why were fish bones found over here, but not over here? What was going on that would cause that? And again, we don't know. Another question?
What happened to the ancient Puebloan people?
Oh, they just moved further south in New Mexico, so that we have, like I said, 18 different Pueblos here in New Mexico, one in Arizona, those are the Hopi, and one over the border into Texas. So the Ancestral Pueblo people that lived here, they just moved further south. It's not a mystery. It's They just moved to better water, basically. Most of that is along the I-40 corridor, if you look on a map.
I think you answered this and you weren't sure, but I'll pitch it anyway. Any estimate of how many people lived in this region?
The region itself, ooh, great question. I should know this one, but I don't. Here's what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you what I do know, and it's not a direct answer to this question, so take it for what it is. So at Aztec West, which is the more extensively excavated of the two, archaeologists estimate that there might have been maybe 150 to 200 people that lived at Aztec West. Again, Aztec West had 400 and some rooms. So why all the rooms and so little people? And the answer seems, again, this is all conjecture at this point, is that a lot of these rooms were for storage, and some of the rooms were used perhaps during ceremony to house people that may have been traveling to these ceremonies. Keep in mind, I'm saying there were 150 to 200 people that lived in the ruin. There were an additional 5,000 to 7,000 people that lived along the Animas River, which would make sense. If you're living in the area, don't you want to live near the river? Heck yeah, you do. Even though there might sometimes be flooding, these people were well aware of that, and usually made their single unit pueblos, these very thin-walled family unit pueblos, close to the river, and then would come to the big buildings for ceremony and trade. This is what the archaeologists are currently saying.
Got it. Again, partially answered this. How easy is it to visit these places? How far from a major airport? I think you've discussed the road condition, but the airport, yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the airport situation. Here in the Four Corners, the best airport is in Durango. Do not fly into the Farmington airport. It will cost you an extra few $100s just to do that. If you're flying in, the airport that can handle the large planes is Durango. Now, that said, getting here, we are 3 hours from the nearest interstate. If you're, the nearest interstate is down in Albuquerque, and it's about a 3-hour drive. That said, there is a 4-lane road that goes up from Albuquerque up into the Four Corners. It's called Highway 550, continues up into Colorado as well. Getting here is pretty easy. Certainly to Aztec, everything is paved, no problem. Getting into Chaco Canyon proper, you're going to have a little bit of some work, as I described a little bit about the road into Chaco Canyon.
Thank you. Can you repeat the name for the construction of the walls in this slide? I don't know what this slide was.
A core and veneer, C-O-R-E and veneer. If that's what you're referring to, these big heavy walls are kind of like two walls with stuff in between them to make them this very massive wall, very thick. I hope that's what you were looking for, core and veneer.
Everything else are laudatory comments. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. Thanks for making a great night. And not that they're not worth listening to, but
understood.
A really tremendous presentation. Is there any connection with the mound builders in the Mississippian area, knowing that they're somewhat contemporaneous?
Archaeologists have told us that there probably was some connection, some trade routes, but I do not have any further information upon that. Again, a great question for an archaeologist, and I am sorry I just don't have that kind of information at the ready to be able to answer those questions.
No, not a problem. Anyone else have a comment or question or anything before we let Dave go and have his dinner? And this was certainly a tremendous presentation. I
Great.
don't think anybody could say that it's anything less than stellar. So
Great.
again, many thank yous, lots of informative and entertaining. I will thank you, Dave. I will say to everybody, thank you also. And I will be putting this on the library, the Rockport Library's YouTube channel within the week, in case anybody wants to go back and look at it, have questions, etc. Thank you, everybody, but special thanks to you, Dave, for making our night so entertaining and informative.
Thank you so much, Dana. And again, thank you everybody for listening on in with this.
Yeah. I'll wish everybody a great night, and thanks once again.